The fluorescent lights in St. Augustine Medical Center hummed overhead as I waddled down the hallway, one hand cradling my 8-month belly, the other gripping a paper bag with my husband's favorite sandwich. My ankles ached, but my heart felt light. Ethan had kissed me goodbye that morning, whispering, "Take care of our little miracle." I pushed open his office door, expecting his smile. Instead, the bag slipped from my fingers and hit the tile with a dull thud. There he was, pressed against his desk, his hands tangled in the auburn hair of Lana Brooks, the nursing supervisor who had been circling us for months. Their lips locked in a hunger I hadn't seen from him in years. And in that frozen second, as my world shattered, I had no idea this betrayal was only the beginning of something much darker. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness, or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. My knees trembled as I gripped the doorframe, the seam before me searing itself into my memory. For a split second, I wanted to believe it wasn't real, that stress and exhaustion had conjured a nightmare. But the smudged lipstick across Ethan's cheek, the way Lana's manicured nails dragged across his chest, and the guilt flashing across his eyes left no room for illusions. The sound of my thermal bag splitting open echoed in my head. Turkey, Swiss, mustard, all scattered across the sterile floor like fragments of the life I thought we had. And then, as if my body couldn't bear the weight of the betrayal, my mind pulled me backward. Back to the beginning. We had been that couple, the one everyone said was destined to make it. Ethan Ward, the confident cardiology resident with the dark, knowing eyes. Me, the psychology undergrad volunteering in patient support, fumbling with clipboards and trying not to trip over my own feet. He'd caught me spilling an entire stack of patient forms once, crouched down, and whispered with a crooked grin, "Relax, Natalie. You're going to change the world. Let me be there when you do." From that day forward, he was woven into every plan I dared to dream. I still remember the morning we finally saw 2 pink lines after 3 years of heartbreak. The way the sun streamed through the kitchen blinds, painting stripes across the countertop as Ethan sank to his knees, tears spilling freely. He pressed his forehead to my belly and whispered, "Our miracle, Nat. Our little miracle." That was the man I married. The man who swore nothing, no storm, no tragedy, would shake us. But lately there had been cracks in the facade. Small, almost invisible at first. The faint trace of perfume that wasn't mine lingering on his collars. The late nights at the hospital that stretched into dawn. The way his eyes sometimes slid away when I talked about Hazel's nursery. As if my words reached a place inside him that he no longer lived in. I had told myself stories to quiet the doubt. He was stressed. He was tired. He was carrying the weight of lives in his hands every day. I convinced myself the distance was temporary, that once Hazel arrived, things would fall back into place. But deep down, deep down I knew. My chest tightened every time he pressed a mug of herbal tea into my hands with too much insistence. Every time he brushed away questions with a too perfect smile. "Trust me, Nat. You worry too much." Now, staring at him tangled in Lana's arms, I realized that those shadows had been warnings. I had ignored them, blinded by love, deafened by hope. And yet, as the betrayal twisted deeper, a question coiled in the pit of my stomach. If Ethan could lie about this, what else had he been hiding? The air in the office felt heavy, suffocating. My chest rose and fell too fast, like the sterile fluorescent light above was sucking the oxygen out of me. Ethan and Lana jerked apart like guilty teenagers, but the image was already carved into my skull. His white coat hung open, her lipstick smeared across his jaw, the desk scattered with crumpled charts and a stethoscope dangling uselessly over the edge. "Ethan." My voice cracked, brittle and raw. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." His eyes darted everywhere but me. His face was pale, then flushed red, like shame and rage battled for dominance. He opened his mouth, then closed it, words stuck in his throat. Lana broke the silence first. She smoothed down her skirt with exaggerated grace, her auburn hair tumbling over one shoulder, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. "Well," she said lightly, her voice dripping with mock amusement. "This is awkward." I swallowed hard, fighting the burn in my throat. Ethan, say something. Tell her she's lying. Tell me I'm wrong. But he didn't move. He didn't even lift his hands, the same hands that had traced Hazel's kicks against my belly that very morning. He just stood there, frozen, while the floor beneath me caved in. Don't, I whispered. Don't you dare stay silent. Lana laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was sharp as glass. Oh, Natalie. You poor thing. Did you really believe a man like Ethan would be satisfied with someone like you? My stomach twisted. My hand instinctively wrapped protectively around my belly. Shut up, I hissed. But she kept going, savoring every word. Look at yourself, swollen, waddling around like a cow. When's the last time you even saw your own feet? Do you honestly think you can keep a man like him interested? Stop. My voice rose, breaking, trembling, but louder than before. Stop talking. Ethan finally muttered, barely audible. Lana, enough. She ignored him. She slinked closer to his side, brushing a possessive hand down his chest. Oh, don't act like you didn't tell me, Ethan. You said it yourself. You stayed with her out of pity after the miscarriages. You haven't loved her in years. Her words sliced through me. My ears rang. I stared at Ethan, begging him to deny it, to fight back, to defend me. But when his eyes finally met mine, what I saw wasn't love. It wasn't even anger. It was pity. Something inside me shattered. Not here, he murmured, his voice breaking hollow. Not like this. I stumbled back a step, my legs quivering like water. Not like what, Ethan? My voice cracked like dry timber. Not like finding my husband's tongue down another woman's throat in his office? Not like realizing my entire marriage is a lie while I'm carrying your child. Lana's laugh was cruel and triumphant. Your child, she sneered. Are you sure, Ethan? Didn't you tell me about those business trips she took during her fertile windows? Psychology conferences, right? Or maybe a little more than that. The implication hit like a knife between my ribs. My breath came ragged, uneven. How dare you? I whispered, my hand tightening around my belly. How dare you question this baby? Ethan said nothing. His silence was louder than any confession. And in that silence, a terrifying realization bloomed in my chest. I wasn't just standing in a room with betrayal. I was standing in the ruins of everything I thought I knew. The walls of Ethan's office seemed to close in, the sterile white suddenly suffocating. The buzzing fluorescent light above flickering like it too was mocking me. My pulse thundered in my ears as I staggered toward the door, desperate to escape the poisoned air. But Lana was faster. She stepped into my path, her heels clicking sharply against the tile. The perfume she wore so cloying it made my stomach turn. She leaned against the doorframe like she owned the place, lips curled into a predatory smile. Running away already, Natalie? She taunted, her voice sugar-sweet but dripping with venom. That's what you do, isn't it? Run from the truth. My chest heaved. Move. My voice was shaky, but the command was there. She tilted her head, eyes glittering. Make me. The words hung in the air, thick and dangerous. I looked past her, silently begging Ethan to intervene. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, shoulders tense, his gaze fixed firmly on the floor. He wasn't going to save me. He wasn't going to save his child. Something inside me snapped. Move. I shouted, stronger this time, my voice echoing off the cold hospital walls. Lana's smile widened into something feral. Then with sudden force she shoved me back. My body pitched, balance gone. I stumbled, arms flailing as pain lanced through my swollen ankles. My back hit the edge of Ethan's desk, papers scattering like white confetti, before I crumpled to the floor, clutching my belly. A strangled cry tore from my throat. Hazel. My baby. Stay down, Lana hissed above me, her face twisted with triumph. Stay down where you belong. And then her foot swung forward. The kick landed square across my belly. The pain was instant, savage, like fire exploding beneath my skin, like knives twisting deep inside me. I screamed, curling instinctively around my child, my body convulsing with terror. Tears blurred my vision as I gasped. The sterile scent of disinfectant mixing with the metallic tang of fear in my mouth. I could barely hear over the pounding of my own heartbeat. Stop! I cried, but my plea came out broken, strangled. Lana raised her foot again, her eyes blazing with cruel satisfaction. She looked less like a nurse and more like a predator finishing its kill. In that frozen second, my gaze darted to Ethan. He stood rooted to the floor, pale, his jaw tight but his body motionless. His silence was deafening. "Do something," I begged, my voice raw. "Ethan, stop her." But he didn't move. The world tilted. Every nerve in my body screamed in agony. My water broke, warm liquid pooling beneath me on the cold tile. The sound of it, the realization of it, ripped another sob from my chest. The room spun, my vision tunneling. Lana leaned over me, whispering so only I could hear, her voice low and cruel. "He was with me the night you thought you were in labor. He's been mine for months. And soon he'll be free of you." My breath caught, horror locking me in place. And then, a voice thundered from the doorway, deeper and sharper than any sound in that room. "What the hell is going on here?" The door slammed open. And for the first time, fear flickered across Lana's face. The doorway filled with a towering figure, his voice slicing through the chaos like a scalpel. "What the hell is going on here?" Dr. Harold Bennett, Chief Medical Officer of St. Augustine, my uncle, the man who had walked me down the aisle when my father couldn't, stood framed in the harsh fluorescent light. His silver hair was slightly disheveled, his usually composed face twisted into fury. Behind him, two nurses froze mid-step, their eyes widening at the sight of me sprawled on the floor, clutching my belly, sobbing in pain. Lana's smug smile faltered. She straightened abruptly, her arms crossing over her chest. "Director Bennett, I can explain." "Explain?" His voice was ice, each syllable razor-sharp. In 3 strides, he was kneeling beside me, his large hands gentle yet urgent as he pressed 2 fingers to my wrist. "Natalie, sweetheart, stay with me. Breathe. Keep breathing." "Hazel," I gasped, panic clawing at my chest. "The baby." His eyes, usually calm and steady, flickered with a storm he didn't dare show me. "Don't move," he ordered softly, voice layered with professional control. "Help is coming. Focus on me. Just breathe, Nat." Hot tears streaked down my cheeks. My body trembled with waves of pain. But the warmth of his hand against mine grounded me. For the first time since stepping into Ethan's office, I felt the faint flicker of safety. "Call 911, he barked at the nurses in the doorway. "Now. And page the obstetrics team. We have a trauma case." The nurses scrambled into action, their sneakers squeaking against the tile as they disappeared down the hall. I turned my head weakly, my vision swimming, and saw Ethan still rooted in place. His face was ghost white, his hands limp at his sides. Not moving toward me. Not moving at all. Uncle Harold's eyes followed mine. His jaw clenched. "Don't you dare stand there, Ethan," he hissed, his voice so cold it made me shiver. "Don't you dare pretend you didn't just watch what she did." "I didn't." Ethan's voice cracked, pathetic, hollow. "I didn't know she would." "Shut up," Uncle Harold snapped, his tone final, merciless. "Not one word." Lana stammered, her bravado crumbling. "It wasn't. I didn't mean she fell." "Enough." His voice thundered, echoing off the walls. "You assaulted a pregnant woman in my hospital. You jeopardized 2 lives under my roof. You'll answer for this." The sound of sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder, nearer. My body convulsed with another contraction, sharp and tearing. "Uncle." My voice broke into a sob. "I can't. Hazel's coming too soon. Look at me." His hands steadied my face, his eyes boring into mine, fierce and unyielding. "We are going to take care of you. You and Hazel. Do you hear me? You are not alone. Not now. Not ever." And though the world blurred around me, though the pain clawed every nerve raw, his words anchored me like a lifeline. The paramedics burst into the room, their radios crackling, stretchers rolling. Lana shrank back into the corner, color draining from her face. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, a coward trapped in his own silence. As they lifted me onto the gurney, Uncle Harold's voice cut through the chaos one last time. "If either of you comes within 50 feet of her again, you'll regret the day you ever set foot in this hospital." And with that, the doors swung open, and I was wheeled toward the unknown. Sirens screaming, hope and terror warring in my chest. The blare of the sirens seemed to melt into the pounding of my heart. Every contraction ripped through me like lightning, jagged and merciless. My hands clenched the rails of the gurney as the paramedics rushed me down the corridor, fluorescent lights flashing overhead in a blur of white. "She's 32 weeks, Uncle Harold barked, keeping pace with the stretcher, his voice tight but controlled. "Vitals are unstable. We need the NICU team ready, now." The words 32 weeks echoed inside me like a curse. Too soon. Too early. My throat tightened with terror. Hazel wasn't ready. She couldn't be ready. Inside the delivery room, the chaos was overwhelming. Gloved hands, sterile trays, machines humming. Oxygen masks pressed against my face, nurses' voices sharp and urgent. I wanted Ethan there. Wanted the man I thought I'd married to whisper that everything would be all right. But when I turned my head, it wasn't Ethan standing by me. It was Uncle Harold, steady and fierce, gripping my hand like an anchor. "Focus on me, Nat. You're stronger than this pain. Hazel needs you to fight." I screamed, the sound raw, guttural, pulled from somewhere deep in my soul. And then, with one final, searing contraction, the room filled with a fragile, broken cry. "Hazel." The doctor lifted her, impossibly small, her skin tinged blue beneath the harsh lights. Barely 4 pounds. My heart shattered and swelled all at once. "She's breathing," the neonatologist said firmly, already moving her to the incubator. "Weak but steady. We'll take it from here." I caught only a glimpse, a tiny hand flailing, a wisp of dark hair plastered to her damp forehead, before they wheeled her away to the NICU. The emptiness in my arms was unbearable. "Please," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Let me see her again. Just 1 second." "You will," Uncle Harold said, his thumb brushing away a tear. His own eyes glistened, though his voice remained solid. "She's stronger than she looks. Just like her mother." Hours later, when the haze of pain medication dulled my body, the door burst open and another figure appeared. Natalie. My sister, Sloane, hair wild from the airport, stormed to my bedside. Her arms wrapped around me carefully, mindful of the 4 lines, of my trembling shoulders. I buried my face against her chest and sobbed. "Oh, sweetie," she murmured, holding me tighter. "I'm so sorry. I should have been here sooner. I should have." "You're here now," I whispered hoarsely. "That's all that matters." She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. Her expression hardened, sharp and unyielding in a way that had intimidated opposing counsel for years. "He doesn't get away with this. Neither of them. Not after tonight." For the first time since stepping into Ethan's office, a flicker of hope sparked inside me. I wasn't alone anymore. I had my uncle's unwavering protection. I had my sister's fierce determination. And I had Hazel, tiny, fragile, but alive, fighting for her life just down the hall. And that was enough to keep me breathing. The steady beep of the monitor was the only sound in the dim hospital room. I lay there, weak, my body hollow after the whirlwind of labor, my arms aching with the absence of Hazel. She was still in the NICU, fighting for every breath. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the cracks like prayers. Sloane sat beside me, her laptop balanced on her knees, a stack of papers spread across the tray table. Her lawyer's mind was already at war, sifting through every detail of Ethan's life. "Natalie," she said, her voice low, controlled, but carrying an edge of steel. "Did you know Ethan took out a $2 million life insurance policy on you?" My head snapped toward her, though the motion sent a lance of pain through my temples. "What? No. That's impossible." Her eyes locked on mine. "It's right here. Effective March 15th. 6 months ago. Right around the time he started getting closer to Lana." The room tilted, my stomach heaving as bile burned the back of my throat. March 15th. That date wasn't just an insurance form. That was the week Ethan had shown up with flowers, telling me he wanted us to start fresh. That was the week I'd felt hope again. Sloane leaned forward, sliding the papers closer. "He never told you, did he?" I shook my head, my pulse hammering. Why would he? Why would he take out that much coverage on me? I don't even make money right now. I'm finishing my dissertation. He's the doctor, not me. Sloane's jaw tightened. "Because your death would look tragic, convenient, and very profitable." The words sliced through me. I pressed a trembling hand to my belly, the phantom ache of Hazel's kicks haunting me. The door creaked open, and Maya Torres, one of the pharmacy techs I'd seen around the hospital, slipped inside, clutching a folder to her chest. Her dark eyes flicked nervously to Sloane, then to me. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, shutting the door behind her. "But I saw what happened, and I can't stay quiet anymore." She opened the folder, revealing inventory logs, shift reports, surveillance stills. Her hands shook as she pointed to Ethan's name. He accessed the restricted medication cabinets, misoprostol. Not enough for anyone to notice at first. Just microdoses. But it was consistent. "And the timing," she trailed off, her gaze meeting mine. "It lines up with your episodes of false labor, doesn't it?" My mouth went dry. Memories stabbed at me. Ethan standing over me in the kitchen, pressing a steaming mug into my hands. His voice soft. "This will help with the Braxton Hicks, Nat, trust me." An hour later, I'd been doubled over in pain, convinced Hazel was coming too soon. He'd told me it was stress. He'd told me I worried too much. Now the truth cracked open like rotten wood. He hadn't been soothing me. He'd been testing me. Testing how much my body could endure. How early he could force Hazel into this world. "For the insurance," I whispered, my voice breaking, horror flooding every nerve. Maya nodded grimly. And Lana, she knew. She signed off on access logs, covered for him when numbers didn't add up. My breath came ragged, sharp, as the pieces locked together. My husband. The man who kissed my forehead and whispered about miracles. He hadn't just betrayed me with another woman. He had tried to kill me. And our daughter. Sloane reached across the bed, gripping my hand tight, her green eyes blazing with fury. "They're not just cheaters, Nat. They're criminals. And we're going to bring them down." I closed my eyes, tears slipping free. In the darkness, Hazel's tiny cry echoed in my memory, fragile but defiant. If she could fight, then so could I. The next morning, the hospital room was quiet except for the faint hum of machines. Hazel was still in the NICU. And though her little lungs fought bravely, I couldn't shake the image of her tiny chest rising and falling behind the glass. Sloane's phone buzzed on the tray table. She answered briskly, her lawyer's tone sharp. After a few clipped exchanges, she hung up and turned to me, her face pale but resolute. "That was Uncle Harold," she said. "He's been digging into Ethan's financials. Natalie, it's worse than we thought." My stomach clenched. Worse than trying to kill me. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Yes, Ethan doesn't just want the insurance money. He needs it. He's in debt, millions in debt, to the Caruso family." The name hit me like a punch. I'd seen it in headlines. Vincent Caruso, a shadowy figure tied to Boston's organized crime families. Loan sharking, racketeering, disappearances that no one talked about out loud. I shook my head, my voice barely a whisper. No, Ethan would never. But even as I said it, the puzzle pieces clicked into place. His restless nights, the unexplained withdrawals, the sudden purchase of expensive suits he claimed were gifts from colleagues. Sloane slid a manila folder across my blanket. Harold got access to internal billing records. Ethan's been running false invoices through the hospital, ordering medical equipment that doesn't exist. The money funnels out, then disappears into shell accounts tied to Caruso's front businesses. I flipped through the papers, my fingers trembling. Numbers, contracts, signatures, all with Ethan's name scrawled neatly at the bottom. 3 million, Sloane continued. That's how deep he is. And Caruso doesn't forgive debts. He collects them. In blood if necessary. My chest tightened, panic clawing at my throat. 3 million. That wasn't a hole Ethan could crawl out of with late shifts and hospital bonuses. That was a death sentence. Do you understand now? Sloane's voice was fierce, cutting through my spiraling thoughts. This wasn't about love, Natalie. It wasn't even just about greed. Ethan was desperate. Killing you meant paying them off. Buying his freedom. The walls seemed to tilt. I clutched my belly where Hazel once moved inside me, feeling the hollow space she'd left. So I wasn't just a wife he betrayed. I was collateral. Before Sloane could answer, there was a knock at the door. A woman in a tailored navy suit stepped in, flashing a badge. Agent Rebecca Santos, FBI, she said, her eyes scanning the room with cool precision. We need to talk about your husband. I swallowed hard, dread rising in my throat. What now? She closed the door behind her, lowering her voice. We've been tracking Ethan for months. Money laundering, insurance fraud, conspiracy. But with Caruso involved, this isn't just about financial crimes. It's about survival. Yours. Your daughter's. And anyone who gets in their way. The room fell into heavy silence. For the first time, I realized the nightmare had grown bigger than betrayal, bigger than Ethan's lies. We weren't just fighting a cheating husband anymore. We were up against the mob. The plan was reckless, dangerous. But it was the only way. 2 days after Agent Santos's visit, I sat in a sterile FBI office downtown. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead too familiar. Too much like the hospital where my world had collapsed. A tech clipped a nearly invisible wire beneath the collar of my blouse, testing the feed with a burst of static in my ear. Remember, Santos said, crouching so her sharp brown eyes were level with mine. He'll try to charm you. He'll beg. He'll twist the truth until you doubt your own memory. Don't engage. Let him talk. Let him reveal himself. I nodded, though my stomach churned. My palms were slick with sweat. I wasn't just walking back into the arms of a husband who betrayed me. I was walking into the den of a man who had tried to kill me. The meeting was set at our old house, the red brick colonial we'd once planned to raise Hazel in. I hadn't stepped inside since the night I was wheeled away in an ambulance. Now, driving up the cracked driveway, every memory pressed against me like a bruise. Painting the nursery pale yellow, planting tulips along the walkway, whispering promises on the porch swing. But the man waiting inside was no longer the one who made those promises. Ethan stood in the kitchen, thinner than I remembered, his face drawn and hollow. When his eyes lit up at the sight of me, I nearly recoiled. Natalie, he breathed, moving forward as if he might embrace me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving me this chance. I stayed near the doorway, my hand brushing the outline of the hidden mic. My voice was cool, measured. This isn't about second chances, Ethan. This is about Hazel. His expression flickered, but he recovered quickly. Of course. Hazel. That's what matters most. He gestured toward the table where he'd set out coffee and pastries from the bakery I used to love, as though a box of Danishes could erase the image of him with Lana. I didn't sit. Tell me, Ethan. Why did you do it? The tea. The medication. Were you really planning to kill me? His face crumpled, eyes wet, his performance flawless. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe me. I got in too deep with the wrong people. Caruso's people. They threatened us, Nat. They threatened our family. The insurance policy, the medication. It was the only way to make it look natural. To get them off our backs. The words came fast, practiced, like he'd rehearsed them in the mirror. Premature labor isn't suspicious, he continued, his voice breaking. Insurance companies don't ask questions when babies come too early. I thought if I could make it happen, if it looked natural, we'd both survive. Rage burned in my chest, but I forced my face to stay blank, remembering Santos's warning. Don't argue. Let him hang himself with his own rope. So you admit it, I said quietly. You tried to force Hazel out before she was ready. You risked both our lives. He froze, realizing too late what he'd said. His jaw tightened. His mask slipped, and for a moment I saw the man beneath. The cold calculation, the desperation. His eyes narrowed. You're wearing a wire, aren't you? My pulse spiked, blood roaring in my ears. I took a step back, heart pounding. He lunged forward, fury twisting his face. But before his hands could reach me, the front door burst open. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Agents swarmed the kitchen, weapons raised, voices thundering. Ethan froze, his eyes darting wildly as they forced him to the ground, cuffing his wrists behind him. Agent Santos appeared beside me, steadying my shaking shoulders. You did it, she murmured. As they dragged Ethan away, his eyes locked on mine, cold and venomous. This isn't over, Natalie, he hissed. It'll never be over. But he was wrong. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt something stirring in my chest. Not fear, not despair. Power. The courthouse smelled faintly of polish and old paper, its marble floors echoing with every step. Reporters swarmed the entrance like vultures, cameras flashing as they shouted questions. "Mrs. Ward, do you believe your husband tried to kill you? Was this about the insurance policy? Do you have anything to say to Lana Brooks?" I kept my eyes forward, clutching Sloane's arm. My sister's stride was confident, her fiery hair catching the morning sun as if daring anyone to challenge her. Behind us, Uncle Harold's presence was a solid wall of protection. Inside, the courtroom was packed, rows of spectators, sketch artists hunched over pads, journalists whispering feverishly. At the defense table, Ethan sat in a crisp navy suit, his face gaunt but expression carefully composed. Lana sat beside him at her own table, pale and brittle, her once arrogant poise cracked under fluorescent lights. The bailiff's voice boomed. "All rise." The judge entered, gavel striking wood. The trial of Ethan Ward and Lana Brooks had begun. The prosecution wasted no time. They played the recording from the wire, Ethan's voice filling the silent courtroom. "Premature labor isn't suspicious. Insurance companies don't ask questions when babies come too early. I thought if I could make it happen, if it looked natural, we'd both survive." The words landed like hammer blows. My stomach twisted hearing them again. But this time, it wasn't just me who carried their weight. It was a jury of 12 strangers, their faces hardening with every syllable. Then came the witnesses. Maya Torres stepped to the stand, her hands trembling slightly as she held the log sheets. "I worked in the pharmacy," she said. "Dr. Ward accessed misoprostol multiple times without authorization, each time lined up with Mrs. Ward's reported episodes of false labor." The defense tried to rattle her, but Maya's voice steadied as she looked at me. I knew something was wrong. I couldn't stay silent after what happened to her. Then Dr. Harold Bennett took the stand. His testimony was calm, surgical, devastating. When I entered that office, I saw Lana Brooks physically assault my niece. I witnessed her kick a pregnant woman in the abdomen. That wasn't a fall. That was violence. The courtroom shifted, gasps, murmurs, pens scratching furiously. Finally, the prosecution called Vincent Caruso himself, the mobster who had once terrified me from newspaper clippings. Now in shackles, he leaned toward the microphone, his gravelly voice chilling. "Dr. Ward owed us $3 million, Caruso said flatly. "He came up with the insurance idea. We didn't tell him to kill his wife, but we didn't tell him not to. He knew what had to be done if he wanted to pay his debt." The defense scrambled, objecting, but the damage was done. Ethan's face went pale, his mask slipping. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not of losing me, not of losing Hazel, but of losing everything he thought he controlled. When the closing arguments ended, the jury filed out. Hours stretched like years. My hands shook as I clutched Sloane's, Hazel's tiny photograph tucked in my palm like a talisman. At last, the jury returned. The foreman's voice was steady. "On the charge of attempted murder, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the charge of money laundering and racketeering, guilty on all counts." The judge's gavel struck. Ethan Ward's fate was sealed. Lana's came moments later. Guilty of assault, conspiracy, and accessory. The courtroom erupted, reporters shouting, spectators whispering, but I heard none of it. I only heard Hazel's cry in my memory, fragile but alive. And for the first time in months, I felt like justice had spoken louder than betrayal. The courthouse doors closed behind me, and for the first time in months, the weight on my chest eased. The verdict had been read. Justice, in its imperfect but powerful way, had been served. Ethan and Lana were led away in shackles. Their eyes still burned with resentment, but their voices no longer mattered. My life was mine again. Yet freedom wasn't as simple as a gavel strike. Healing wasn't linear. I still woke at night drenched in sweat, Ethan's whispered lies echoing in my ears. I still startled at the sharp click of heels in a hospital corridor, thinking for one fractured second that Lana was behind me. But every time the fear tried to reclaim me, I thought of Hazel, my daughter, my miracle, tiny and fragile in her incubator, yet fighting with a strength that humbled me. She had survived everything he'd done to us. If she could fight, so could I. 3 months after the trial, I defended my dissertation at Boston University. The topic: post-traumatic growth in survivors of intimate partner betrayal. My voice only wavered once, when I mentioned Hazel by name. When the committee chair shook my hand and said, "Dr. Pierce, congratulations," I felt a tide of validation wash over me. Ethan had tried to strip me of my future. Instead, I claimed it for myself. But it wasn't enough just to heal my own wounds. The more I recovered, the clearer it became. Women like me, wives, mothers, daughters, were walking into the same storms every day. Too many suffered in silence. Too many never got their day in court. So with Sloane's legal expertise and Uncle Harold's backing at the hospital, I launched the Pierce Resilience Fund. Its mission was simple: provide legal aid, counseling, and emergency shelter for women caught in the crosshairs of betrayal and abuse. The first time I walked into the fund's small office, Hazel balanced on my hip. I felt a different kind of pride swell in my chest. The walls weren't polished. The furniture was secondhand. But the hotline rang that first day, and the woman on the other end whispered, "I don't know where else to turn." I did know, and I was there to answer. Months passed. Hazel grew stronger, her tiny lungs filling with laughter. She toddled across the living room floor, clutching a toy stethoscope, giggling when she pressed it against my chest. "Heartbeat, Mama," she squealed. I kissed the crown of her head, whispering back, "Yes, baby. Strong." One evening, I stood at a podium in a lecture hall, the same university where I'd once been a terrified student. This time, rows of eager faces looked up at me as I spoke, not as a victim, but as an advocate. Survival, I told them, my voice steady, isn't just about making it through the storm. It's about what you build once the clouds break. It's about turning betrayal into fuel, pain into purpose. In the front row, Sloane sat with her arms folded proudly. Uncle Harold held Hazel on his lap, her dark eyes wide with curiosity. My family, my real family, was here. And as applause rose around me, I knew Ethan hadn't destroyed me. He had forged me. I wasn't just a survivor. I was a weapon. 2 years later, I walked across the campus green with Hazel's tiny hand wrapped tightly in mine. She was a whirlwind now, no longer the fragile preemie fighting for every breath, but a bold, bright toddler who laughed with her whole body. Her curls bounced as she ran ahead, pointing at the fountain, spraying arcs of water into the late afternoon sun. "Come on, Mama," she called, her voice pure joy. I smiled, watching her. That smile, her survival, was the most powerful answer to everything Ethan and Lana had tried to take from us. We stopped at a small cafe near the lecture hall where I now taught psychology. On the wall behind me hung a flyer for the Pierce Resilience Fund. I'd lost count of how many women had walked through those doors, carrying the same broken pieces I once held. Some had fled violence. Some had been betrayed in ways that shattered their sense of self. All of them feared they were too weak to rebuild. But every time, I told them the same thing. You are stronger than you think. And the very pain that tried to destroy you can become the foundation of your new life. Hazel tugged at my sleeve, holding up her toy stethoscope. "Heartbeat, Mama," she said with a grin. I pressed it against my chest, her laughter ringing out like music. In that moment, I knew we had already won. Because survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about creating something extraordinary out of the wreckage. It was about proving, to yourself, to the world, that you are unbreakable. And that is what I want to tell you, the one listening right now. Maybe you felt betrayal so deep it hollowed you out. Maybe someone you trusted made you feel disposable, unworthy, powerless. I know that ache. I know that silence at 3 a.m. when you wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. But hear me. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not defined by the people who failed you. You are defined by the fight you still have inside you. The same fight Hazel had when she came into this world too soon. The same fight I found when everything I loved was ripped away. The best revenge isn't anger. It isn't even justice in a courtroom, though that matters. The best revenge is living a life so strong, so unapologetically yours, that the people who tried to destroy you realize they only made you unstoppable. So here's my question for you. What makes you unbreakable? Tell me in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs to keep going tonight. And if this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe, to join this community of survivors, fighters, and storytellers. Because together, We're not just surviving, we're rewriting what survival looks like. As Hazel pulled me toward the fountain, the sunlight caught her locket, the tiny silver one I'd given her, with our first photo together tucked inside. It glinted like a promise. They tried to destroy us, but they failed. And the life we built instead? That's our victory.